The Locked On Podcast Network presents the NBA Big 3 in 30. The 3 biggest stories in the NBA from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The NBA Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest stories in the NBA.
The Nets waive Keon Johnson as the first of several roster cuts coming ahead of training camp.
You are Locked On Nets, your daily Brooklyn Nets podcast.
The Nets are facing a little bit of a logjam at the back end of the roster after what has been the busiest offseason in the NBA. They obviously made the 5 first-round picks in this draft, so that's a historic group coming in terms of volume. And then they took on guys like Terrence Mann, Haywood Highsmith, now latest Kobe Buffkin, via salary dumps, and they're not sending any players out in those deals. They're just absorbing them into cap space. So because of that, that's 8 players that came in that were not on the roster last season. So these guys, these partially or non-guaranteed guys on the back end of the roster, there is going to be a lot of competition. And right now, there isn't even a spot for a lot of these guys because the Nets are after the Kobe Buffkin trade, are at 15 standard contracts. So these partially or non-guaranteed guys don't even have a spot right now. So it was always anticipated that a lot of them were going to be waived, if not all of them. Am I surprised that Keon Johnson was the first one to be waived? Yes, I am surprised. I said previously, I got questions earlier in the offseason about which of these guys, the partial or non-guaranteed guys, should get the Nets' final roster spots. And I said I thought Keon Johnson was one of the most likely to stick around. Now, in my defense, that was before the Nets traded for Haywood Highsmith and also Kobe Buffkin, both of which play shooting guard, or, Buffkin plays point guard and shooting guard, but 2 guys who are going to be at Johnson's spot. So that obviously greatly limited the need for him and, the likelihood of him sticking around. And the Nets decide to waive him. But even so, I'm pretty surprised that he was the first of the partially or non-guaranteed guys to get waived, given he's a guy who had an expansive role last season. I mean, Keon Johnson played 79 games. He had 56 starts, was a starter for the majority of the season. Obviously, there were injury involved with that, but he did a lot for this team in terms of the volume offensively, in terms of getting opportunities. The Nets really threw him out there, and they wanted to see what they had. And I guess you could say that maybe it was more likely that he was not going to be back because he had such an expansive role, because the Nets had the expansive sample size and could really make a proper determination of whether or not they liked him. And clearly they weren't too high on him. But you look at what he did last season, Keon, he's also, the youngest of this group of the partially or non-guaranteed guys, which also includes Jalen Wilson, Drew Timme, Tyrese Martin, some other guys who have not been officially announced but might be coming in. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But Keon's the youngest. At 23 years old, he has the most pass pedigree as a former first-round pick. And last year, I thought he made some improvements. Like, I didn't think he played bad. Did I have any illusions about Keon Johnson being a long-term piece for this Nets team? Not really, but he still is a guy who, came in. He was around, I think, 3rd or 4th on the team among players who ended the year on the roster in terms of field goal attempts per game. So he was taking some of the most shots. He averaged 10.6 points per game, was in double digits for the first time in his career, albeit on bad efficiency, which I will talk about later, but really also emerged as a high-level point of attack defender for this Nets team. And that was one of the things that they were really emphasizing at Summer League in 2024 and leading into last season, was getting Keon to tap into his athletic gifts on the defensive end of the floor and really take advantage of those things. The Nets have Steve Hetzel, who's one of Jordi Fernandez's top assistants, who coached Keon in Portland and spoke about that on numerous occasions. And I think Keon really did that. He was one of the Nets' better point of attack defenders alongside a guy like Zaire Williams, who was really a spark plug in that regard. And he flashed some capabilities there. So I think that was definitely a positive. But then when you look at the offensive end, the Nets really gave him the reins to, do a lot offensively, to put shots up at volume that he never had throughout his career. And the efficiency just wasn't there. I mean, you look at it, he shot 39% from the field, 31% from 3. He's never been efficient. He's never been a good three-point shooter. He was, albeit on career high volume this year, continued to not be a good three-point shooter. And then he got to the rim a lot, but he wasn't a guy who could finish. He shot 54% at the rim. That ranked in the 20th percentile among combo guards. So I think that there were just some glaring limitations offensively from Keon. And while the Nets might have liked what he did defensively, having guys coming in like Terrence Mann, like Haywood Highsmith, like Zaire Williams, who could defend at the point of attack. And then you have a guy like Kobe Buffkin coming in, probably going to play minutes at shooting guard, who probably has more offensive potential than what Keon has shown. There really wasn't a place for him on this Nets roster. But even with that, with how expansive his role was last season, with his youth, with his past pedigree, I thought that he would be going into training camp with the team after the role that he had last season. But clearly the Nets have moves to make. They have more guys who are going to need to be cut, and they decided to cut bait with Keon first. And that really leaves questions about the rest of these partially or non-guaranteed guys. As I said, Drew Timme, Tyrese Martin, Jalen Wilson. Talking about Brooklyn's decision to waive Keon Johnson and where this leaves the rest of the Nets roster, what is going to be the fate of these partially or non-guaranteed guys, a lot of which played a fair amount with the Nets last season. So I want to just touch on where the roster is at, what is going on. There's a lot of moving pieces on the back end of this roster. And then after that, I'm going to dig into these guys like Jalen Wilson, Drew Timme, Tyrese Martin, what could happen with them. But including after this Keon Johnson decision with the Nets waiving him, if you include the unofficial signings of Ricky Council and Fambo Zhang, also Grant Nelson, who I haven't mentioned or we haven't heard about, but his agency Gersh previously reported that he signed an Exhibit 10 contract or was going to sign an Exhibit 10 contract with the Nets. So including those signings, Council, Zhang, Nelson, the Nets have 23 players under contract. You're only allowed to have 21 players at training camp. Now, I think a lot of people have been operating under the presumption that if they're over, they have these 23 guys, you're only allowed 21. They're partially or non-guaranteed guys who have already been here. Some of those guys are going to get cut, whether it be, Jalen Wilson, Drew Timme, or Tyrese Martin. That doesn't necessarily have to be the case. These guys who are coming in, like Ricky Council, Fambo Zhang, Grant Nelson, although they're announced as signings and guys who are going to be on the team, they also might not make it to training camp. And the Nets have operated this way in the past, and they've done this with two guys now this offseason in the past couple of days. They signed David Muoka, a 6'11" center out of UNLV, previously played for the Long Island Nets in 2023-24, but they signed him and then they waived him. They also today signed DeAndre Davis, a 6'6" wing, played at Louisville and Seton Hall before finishing his college career last season at Ole Miss, but they're reportedly going to waive Davis as well. And this is something that the Nets do every year. They sign guys, they get their rights, then they waive them and they send them to Long Island and they retain their G League rights. But they're doing it a little bit differently this year than they had in prior years. And Yazi Goslin, friend of the pod, has been on the show several times, reported this. Also, Mike Scotto, another friend of the pod, reported in regard to the Davis contract. The Nets are giving these guys partially guaranteed deals. In Muoka's case and Davis, they're giving both of these guys, instead of signing them to an Exhibit 10 contract, and an Exhibit 10 contract is a training camp, right? It's not a standard NBA contract. They're signing these guys to partially guaranteed standard contracts. Like Muoka and DeAndre Davis both got partially guaranteed deals that guaranteed $85,300. And that is, according to Yossi Goslin, that is the most that the Nets are going to be able to offer these guys as a partially guarantee, while retaining their G League rights and retaining their ability to sign a two-way contract potentially with the team later in the season. So why are they doing that? Because the Nets are still under the salary floor. I've been through this numerous times on previous podcasts, but after acquiring Kobe Buffkin, if the Nets waive the rest of their partially or non-guaranteed guys, they're still around $4.5 million below the salary floor. So they have to keep trying to inch up closer to that. And by signing these guys to partially guaranteed deals, which are $85,000, and waiving them, that partial guarantee counts towards the salary floor. So theoretically, the Nets could do this with several guys and get closer to the salary floor. Now, by my calculations, if they're $4.5 million below, they're not going to have enough guys that they can partially guarantee at $85,000 to reach the salary floor. But doing this several times can get them closer to it. So that's what's happening with these other players. I've tweeted out the announcements about the Nets signing Muoka, about them signing DeAndre Davis. And I'm getting a lot of questions from Nets fans. Why are they signing more guys? I thought we were over, the training camp, those 21 contracts. We already have more than that. Why are we bringing even more in? Because those guys are going to be waived before the start of training camp, and they're not even making it to training camp. They're going to go to Long Island, and that partial guarantee is going to count against the Nets' books and get them closer to the salary floor. So my point with this is that these guys who are previously announced, but have not officially been signed by the Nets, like Ricky Council, who also, according to Brian Lewis, has a partial guarantee in his contract, Fambo Zhang, Grant Nelson's reportedly in Exhibit 10, but these other guys like Council and Zhang could be signed, given partial guarantees, and then sent to Long Island, and they might not even make it to training camp. But if they do, the other guys on this Nets roster who are partially or non-guaranteed, Drew Timme, Jalen Wilson, Tyrese Martin, the Nets are going to have to cut one or more of these guys if those other guys make it to training camp. So regardless, all of these players can't come to training camp. And even if guys like Jalen Wilson, Drew Timme, Tyrese Martin make it to training camp, the Nets still have 15 guaranteed contracts.
Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's a 401k or properties or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I linked all my accounts to Monarch and immediately spotted a few subscriptions I wasn't even using. Canceling those all can save you money every month. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNFL.
Malcolm Brogdon could potentially be a game changer.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast.
I am lucky enough to be joined by Ben Strober, the new co-host of the Locked On Wizards podcast. Ben, we've been talking about it a little bit off air, but man, how and I promise this is not sarcastic because there have been some terrible Knicks seasons that I was still incredibly excited about. So how excited are you for this upcoming Wizards season and just have basketball back in our lives again?
I'm actually very excited for it because I feel like there's something different I can look for every single night. And that's kind of what I've tried to explain to the audience here. I said you can't really look at it from the lens of wins and losses every single night, the stat sheet. You want to see how guys are developing. You want to see meaningful development from all of your players. So you're looking at it from that lens every night. Do you see Alex Sarr develop here in his second year? How good does Trey Johnson look in his rookie season? I've been preaching to the choir by whole summer really that I think he could be a sleeper candidate for Rookie of the Year. So if he gets enough playing time in his rookie year to do so, and that actually ends up happening, it'd be awesome. But there's going to be something exciting to see every single night for Wizards basketball, and should be a fun year around the NBA. I'm looking forward to my first year covering it officially here with the Locked On Podcast Network.
It's going to be a blast. I'm a little bit jealous. Obviously, like covering a really good team is a joy in its own right. But man, expectations. I was just talking to someone about this. Yeah. I was upset after the Knicks beat the Pistons last year because I didn't feel like they played well enough in the series. And I was like, man, like Kevin Knox era Knicks fan watching me. I don't know if that's a real sentence. Would have been just out of his mind happy with that. And there's just things you appreciate. There's unintentional comedy, and just tracking player development is an incredibly fun journey. But today we're not going to talk about the young Wizards, as interesting as they are. We're going to talk about an old Wizard, a Dumbledore, if you will. Malcolm Brogdon, just 24 games on the Wizards last year, did not shoot the ball very well, did some other stuff well. We'll get into it. But how would you sum up the experience of having Malcolm Brogdon on your basketball team?
So, man, it was a roller coaster of emotions, to say the least, because the night that he arrives in D.C., he's obviously part of a trade that happened on draft night in 2024 that was shocking to me and the majority of Wizards fans when Denny Avdia, a guy that was drafted 4 years previously and was taken by the previous regime, so it wasn't shocking to see that maybe that the new regime that was put in here with Will Dawkins and Michael Winger wasn't going to fit the timeline here. But still, nonetheless, very surprising that Denny Avdia was moved on draft night. You got the first-round pick, which became Bub Carrington, a 2029 first-round pick as well, so that was exciting. And then Brogdon was a piece that came along as part of the deal, so you really think, hey, okay, I really like this deal here because we got two first. We obviously just picked up a guy who's going to be maybe the point guard of the future here in DC. We'll see how Bub Carrington works out in the long run. But when Brogdon was included in that, I was kind of like, man, this is a guy I feel like we are going to be able to flip for some assets at the deadline. And ultimately, injuries has kept him off the court for the most part, wasn't really able to establish himself here in DC the way most of us anticipated he would. So the fact that he makes his way to free agency and he kind of was on the market for quite some time wasn't really that surprising to me. I guess his injury history is what makes it a little more difficult for him to showcase himself to some of these teams. And that's why I wasn't really surprised at all. And I'm not mistaken, it's not a guaranteed contract for Brogdon, correct? He's going to have to fight it out with Landry Shamet, right?
Yeah.
So
pending a trade, which seems like it should happen, but as of now, no, not guaranteed he makes the roster.
Got you. So, I mean, that seems like the right move for New York. So, first glance, I like the move for you guys because, I mean, this is the time right now for the Knicks. And I know from an outside perspective, it's probably funny to say because you probably hear it all the time saying, if the Knicks are going to win it this year, they're never going to win it. And it's kind of how it seems right now. And I feel like Brogdon is a guy, if you can keep him healthy, can really be a nice piece for you guys off the bench. But ultimately, roller coaster of emotions here in DC. Not the best time, I guess you could say, for Brogdon here, but it just didn't work out in the long run.
All right, let's get into some of the specifics of his game. The defining quality, I would say, of his offensive game throughout his career has been his ability to get to the rim and his ability to finish at the rim. And I was curious what it would look like in DC without a lot of spacing, to put it bluntly, around him. Like would the efficiency fall off? Would the volume fall off? And yet he, in terms of volume getting to the rim, and volume and efficiency once he got there, he was fantastic in both those areas. 38% of his shot volume came at the rim. There's 93rd percentile for combo guards, according to Cleaning the Glass. Shot 65% at the rim, which was above average and actually a career high for him. 94th percentile on shooting fouls drawn. I'm just curious if that was something where the tape matched the numbers and you noticed he was really effective around the basket, and if he still kind of impressed you from an athletic standpoint in his age 32 season.
Yeah, he did in the limited time that you got to see him because this team really didn't have a whole lot of options for a guy that could get downhill and break down the defense and finish at the rim. And I know that's really the biggest issue right now that ultimately the team's likely starting point guard on opening night this year, Bub Carrington, has. He's a guy that maybe seems better fit as an off-ball two guard. Brogdon was kind of the only real point guard, I'd say, that was on the team last year that could go out there and get to the rim. I know you had Jordan Poole, who is a very high-usage player as well, would often end up taking a long three-pointer on a ton of possessions. So it was kind of weird to see those two on the floor together because at times you'd just be like, all right, if Jordan Poole's got the ball this possession, he's probably going to isolate here and take a long three at some point. But Brogdon, when he was out there, I was kind of excited in a way because I felt like he had the best opportunity to help guys around him develop. I think it struck me as a guy that made guys around him better, and that was really the case for him throughout most of his career. And as he mentioned, he did a really nice job of getting to the rim and finishing for this team last year. I think ultimately where he kind of really fell off, obviously, was shooting the basketball from the outside because career really solid three-point shooter, and last year just a career low for the guy, and I'm not sure if the injuries were a part of that. Wasn't able really to get his shot, get his stroke back throughout most of the season, but I think it's tough. You got to look at the situation he was playing in DC. You're one of the few veterans on a super young team. Obviously, you're not going to win a lot of games. You're not expected to be out there to help them win a bunch of games. You're kind of out there facilitating for the most part and playing within the role that they had for him with the hopes that they'd be able to move him at the deadline. So I feel like when he did have the opportunities, he showcased himself decently, but ultimately the injuries were just really the reason why he was unable to make a name for himself and maybe get dealt off to a contending team at the deadline.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about his shooting, because I was curious about that. 29% from three, worst mark of his career. I noticed even relative to 23-24 when he was on the Blazers, not exactly a team that's like going to spoon feed you great shots. His catch and shoot opportunities went down in half from 3 to just 1.5 per game. I'm sure some of it, to your point, was rhythm. Some of it was small sample size. Was he taking like high degree of difficulty threes just because the Wizards couldn't like spoon feed him the type of looks, let's say he got, I don't know, when he was on the Celtics and winning 6th man of the year, or was it as simple as like a stretch of really cold shooting for him?
I feel like it was a stretch of cold shooting. And not to say that there wasn't a lot of great looks for him, or he had a lot of guys that were able to generate looks for him on the outside, because the Wizards don't really have a lot of playmakers on the team, and that's kind of been the case for the past couple years. But I just got the sense he didn't look too comfortable in the looks that he was getting, whether he was actually getting some catch-and-shoot opportunities or taking them off the dribble, coming off a screen, or whatever it may have been for Malcolm Brogdon in the limited amount of three-point action that he did have last year. One thing to put in perspective, this Wizards team shoots a ton of three-pointers. They had 3 guys last year that hit over 100 threes, most of them from that rookie class as well, including Alex Sarr, which was really surprising. Like, why is Alex Sarr making over 100 threes? It's because he's shooting a ton of them. The Wizards were not afraid to stretch the floor, play 5 out from that realm and shoot threes. So that's kind of why maybe Brogdon, the offense didn't really flow the right way that you could see it. But in a situation in New York where you wouldn't have to expect his usage to be that high, I think he might pick back up where he left off in some previous years in his career of shooting from the outside.
The NFL season is finally here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for the weekend with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however I like to bet in the moment. Player props, same-game parlays, jumping in live as the action unfolds. It's quick, it's easy, it's the best way to add a little more energy to Sunday. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
You are Locked On Bulls, your daily Chicago Bulls podcast.
Of course, when things start going left, start going wrong, you hear about all these woulda, coulda, shoulda deals. One of the ones that popped up recently with Jonathan Kuminga turning down a 3-year, $75 million contract from the Golden State Warriors to not sign the qualifying offer there. He still has not signed officially. Media's days are next week for some teams, by the way.
He said, I'm taking it to October 1st, baby.
Hey, bro, listen. And you know what? If he does end up taking the qualifying offer, I can't be mad at it. But if he pushes it all the way to October 1st just to end up taking a 3-year, $75 million deal, it's almost as bad as the Bulls and Josh Giddey taking almost 80 days to meet in the middle.
Bro, I'm going to be honest with you, bro. Like, it's worse because at this point, like, it's kind of getting into like, hey, like, we know you all right, but who do you think you are, though? Like, you better be LeBron on the other side of this deal, bro.
Well, I think it's just the fact that he doesn't really want to stay with the Warriors, but clearly he's going to have to stay with the Warriors. And then he doesn't want to be with the Warriors. No other team's offering another contract. Yeah. He doesn't want to sign a long-term deal, and they trade him without him having the option to get back into the free agent market after that. You can't get everything you want. It's too many layers to it, bro. And that's where the Giddey and Bulls thing, where both sides wanted to re-up on a new deal. They just wanted their own value on it. Like, neither the Warriors or Kuminga wants to stay together. Yeah. They just have to at this point.
The Warriors are just trying to make it a better trade situation. But, bro, like, listen, you better be living in the world of I'm willing to play for less for you than to play for this organization. Because I ain't gonna lie to you, bro. Like, you're not gonna get offered $25 million everywhere.
No, he's not.
Like, when he hit this market, it's definitely about to be, I got 20 for you.
Exactly. Well, 2022-ish, like, right? Like maybe around that area. Like, he initially, like Josh Giddey started off wanting $30 million. So that's why it's like, all right, they offered you 3 years at 25 per. Like, that's in the middle. Like, what are we doing here?
I'll bet you he signs a Patrick Williams contract. I bet
money. If he was
going into free agency, why would I offer you money? Like, you turned down 25. That don't mean the league gonna offer you more than that when you get out there. You ain't did nothing. And they not finna play you. You about to sign this qualifying offer and they not finna play you. Like, there's a certain point where it's like, you got to realize who you are. I get holding out. I get not, like, trying to get everything that you worth, but, like, fam, you averaging 15 points a game. I'm paying you off for what you actually did, not what you can do.
Yeah. I mean, and the thing is, too, is that, I mean, Kuminga, when he's on the court with Steph and Jimmy, it actually was Steph and Dre, it actually was pretty good, plus minus wise, but it is what it is, though. We're not even here to break down the Kuminga value.
It's just mind blowing. Turned down $25 million. My bad. I threw the whole show off.
But with that said, So apparently the Bulls were in contract or in trade talks before they ended up trading Caruso for Josh Giddey for a Kuminga Caruso trade, which the Warriors turned down because the ownership was not ready at that point in time to give up on the value of Jonathan Kuminga. You got to think that the Warriors are kicking themselves in the butt for that now, because you got to think it's clearly a player that Steve Kerr doesn't want to use. That was clear even before then. But then now you're stuck in this situation where you just saw Alex Caruso help the OKC Thunder win a title, and Caruso would be perfect for that team, especially after they had just lost Klay Thompson too.
Bro, you gotta think about this as well. Caruso walked into OKC and we instantly went championship.
Mm-hmm.
Like soon as the trade was done, we was like, that's a championship team. Like they will be in the fight.
To the degree we were kind of looking at them like that before anyway. But yeah, you get that. It's clearly
but you knew this was the one that was like, if they get there, this will put you over the top.
Yeah.
Like, this is how you beat Denver. This is how you beat. Caruso was guarding Jokic and was shutting him down. Like you knew instantly, like, that's the over the top move. That's what you needed. And yes, you kind of get that in Jimmy Butler, but Jimmy Butler's stupid expensive.
Yeah.
And he's starting to trend towards, I hope he has a better season this year without all the issues and stuff like that. But like, he's starting to trend towards kind of the reason why Miami was like, this is not the future. This is where we need to move on here. Like, and you got him for what? Was he making $48 million over the next two?
Who, Caruso?
No, Jimmy. I think Jimmy's getting like 48 million. Right. Like, you're overpaying for exactly what you wanted at Alex Caruso, and you're more than likely gonna have to sign this dude that's gonna walk away for nothing. $54 million.
Jimmy does have more offensive upside, and especially in the playoffs. So I get, but like Jimmy at one point, I think you can compare to Caruso as a defender, but now he's not nearly the defender Caruso is. Like, he's just not. And I mean, age has caught up with Jimmy Butler in that sense. Like,
who would have thought we'd be in a world where Jimmy's 36?
Bro, that's crazy.
No.
That's wild, bro. That's crazy. But yeah, I mean, let me ask you this though, for the Bulls aspect of it. Had the Bulls did do this deal, where do you think the team where would the team be at versus where they're at now, how we look at it with Josh Giddey? Because it would have been basically the same thing. The Bulls would have still had to go through negotiations. They still would have gone through restricted free agency the same way. They probably would have gave him the $25 million. But does the state of where do you think the state of the team is at that point? Had we did the Caruso for Kuminga trade instead of getting Josh Giddey?
Same spot. You don't have a point guard. Like, you're basically going from an offense that is a more flowing offense to an offense that is a one-on-one, go out and score an offense. Kobe's probably your point guard at that point.
Kobe's probably your one. You probably Ayo at the two.
Ayo at the two. Kuminga at the three. I guess we could throw Modest in there at the four. Like, I don't see an offense that flows there. I see a lot of one-on-one.
You know what that would have done? I think we would have just had a younger version of DeMar and Zach.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was about to say. That's literally what I was about to say.
Like, we would have just had a younger version of DeMar. We would have been back in the same exact thing that we were before. It would have been, like you said, heavy isolation, not really as much flowing into that offense. Not to say that Kuminga couldn't have come here, especially as a starter, that you would have to rely on. Maybe it would have been more towards 18 points per game or whatever in that first year. But like, it would have just been back to very similar to what we already had and we saw. And not to say that the Kuminga Zach like didn't have its moments, or I mean the Kuminga Zach, the Zach DeMar era didn't have its moments to it, but to just do that just younger, I don't know if that would have been the direction change that it feels like we're actually in right now.
Hey, listen, there's no world in this modern NBA where it works. That's nuts. Did you see that comment?
See what? I don't even have the comments up, so I ain't see no comment.
Jay Ace with
oh wow,
that's diabolical. And the worst part is I could see him doing it.
That's crazy.
That's diabolical work right there. But no, like I just
when Stacey King live on air said, "I'm coming," like that was at that point you realize Stacey may just be at this point now where he's like, "I'm gonna do and say whatever I want.
I'm coming, God." I can see him doing that on a. Shout out to Stacey, bro. Bro,
Man, I haven't done an episode with Stacey in like a year and a half, bro. We got to get up.
We gotta get Stacey back on, bro.
Well, that's funny, man.
Hey, that's the wild thing to say. And then right after you go, he came early for what did he say? He came for the massage, but he got the facial.